feels phenomenal. It's a magic carpet type of feeling. Well, everybody, with a name like the Fireblade, you know it's going to be a good motorcycle. I'm of the opinion that any motorcycle that is named something has to be good. Think of the Rocket 3, the Daytona, and the Fireblade. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of Yammy Noob. Today is my first ride and impression on the street of the Honda CBR1000RR-R SP Fireblade. That is the last time I'm ever going to say its full name. It is going to be the Honda Fireblade from here on out. And you guys have to admit that this bike looks absolutely stunning in this morning light here in Austin, Texas. Look at this beautiful warm glow that is happening on this bike right now, this iridescent paint scheme. I have seen one of these in person before at EICMA in 2019, I think. And it blew me away then, but seeing it out in the real world, guys, this motorcycle is really something else. What the hell is going on? Why do I have this Fireblade right in front of me? Well, I actually purchased, yes, I cut a $28,000 check, which, let me tell you, felt a little bit different when I was doing that. And I bought this motorcycle. Did I buy it because I want to have some fun with it? No, you guys already know. This is a giveaway motorcycle. Yes, I'm going to be giving away this Honda Fireblade to hopefully someone who is of a strong testicular fortitude or ovarian fortitude, whatever your preference is or whatever your situation may be. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to give you this motorcycle, and there's 3 ways you can enter to win this beast. So number 1, you can go to GamingNoob.co as usual, sign up for all of our giveaways, sign up for our Discord, all that cool stuff, support the series, support the channel. Second way you can get signed up is by supporting over at our new store, ynmoto.co. That's where you can get tires, parts, gear, all kinds of cool stuff. We're often updating the website, trying to make it better. And the third way you can get entered is by going over to yammynoobmerch.com. You can get yourself a piece of merch, a hat, whatever you'd like, and every dollar you spend is an entry to win on both the merch store and the parts and gear store. So you guys definitely go and check that out. So as I mentioned, this is a $28,000 super bike. Holy crap, Honda, why is it so expensive? Well, this is the SP model, and so as you can tell, it's got some little features and benefits here and there that set it aside from the traditional Fireblade that they are selling, which I actually only found out recently that they did not sell this bike in a non-SP version. They did sell it in an SP version and a non-SP version. I've never seen a base model Fireblade. I have only ever seen SP versions. And to be honest, if you're spending this much money on a bike, you should get yourself the SP version. This thing is rad. As you can tell, paint scheme here, red, white, and blue, HRC logo right there. But the first thing you're going to clock on this SP model are these electronic suspension components from Öhlins. Yes, this is a top shelf NPX fork, brought to you by Öhlins, fully adjustable front and rear, fully electronic, which is amazing. We're going to get into the dash later and stuff. It's a literal spaceship. It's absolutely crazy. We've got these absolutely gigantic rotors, top shelf Brembos right there. This thing is the absolute business. Radial pull master cylinder, of course. Look, the feel to the lever, I've already ridden this bike around a little bit. The feel to the lever is it's so good. Factory Akrapovic fitted exhaust with the Fireblade logo right there, which is really, really cool. This thing has a really neat little valve in it that opens up at a specific RPM, which makes it sound the absolute business. And you might be asking, okay, Yam, this bike is really cool, but is it really worth 28 grand? And having ridden it around slightly, you know, here in the hill country, around town and stuff, I would say that it is definitely worth. Yeah, it's all good. I'm filming a video. Yeah, thanks. Guys interrupted my flow. As I was saying, I've ridden this bike around a little bit. I think it's absolutely worth every penny of that $28,000 price tag. $28,500 MSRP. So honestly, like 30 grand out the door for us mere mortals, really. This bike competes with stuff like Ducati's V4S, the BMW M1000RR, the R1M, you know, your flagship superbikes, let's say, your premium special edition superbikes that are made. And you might be asking, well, Honda already has a Fireblade, right? Why do they make this thing? Is it an update? Well, this bike was actually made to compete in World Superbike. That series, if you don't know, is actually based on production motorcycles that are homologated for race purpose. So Honda needed a new motorcycle that actually could compete against other bikes in that category, because things like the R1 and the Ducati V4R, those bikes are just whooping ass all over everybody. Kawasaki ZX-10 at the hands of Jonathan Rea as well. And Honda was like, damn, we really got to step our game up. So that's why you see these winglets right here for that added downforce at super high speeds. Not really relevant for us mortals here on the street. But when I get this thing out on track, because you guys know, I'm going to get this thing out on track. I got to ride this thing on the track, because as we'll see, it is an out-and-out race bike in every sense of the word. So enough jibber-jabber. Let's get our backpack on. Let's zip up our jacket here. Let's get this thing started up, and let's have some fun. Sit back and enjoy, guys. This is going to be a long vlog. So one thing you might not know about the Fireblade is that it is a keyless ignition system. So you can flip this out, but all it really does is open the gas cap here. You can't stick it in the middle anywhere. There's just a fully integrated starter button, and you're like, where is the ignition? What do I do? It's actually right there. Isn't that crazy? So you tap this on the side here, and the whole thing comes to life. It is. It took me a solid 5 minutes to figure out how to turn on this motorcycle. I was so embarrassed at the dealership. But that's what happens nowadays, man. These things are literal spaceships. It's crazy. Gone are the days of simple, easy to understand motorcycles. Every one of them has, their little farkles and features and benefits and oddities and peculiarities. They're all unique and different. I like the R1 inspired cutouts here. Just kidding, Honda. Just kidding. All right, let's get her here in neutral. Spins to life very easily. We'll roll up here off this hill so you guys get a sound check. Let's get a little sound checkerino here. That clutch pull is almost at the lever. This thing just wants to go, doesn't it? Look at the sound clip. Buttery smooth inline 4 sound. 999cc with a MotoGP engine-derived bore and stroke. This thing seriously has, I think, the same bore and stroke as the MotoGP bike. So that's a cool flex to tell your friends, isn't it? So we're going to do quite a bit of riding today with this motorcycle. I'm actually on my way to go grab some coffee. It is quite early in the morning, so I do need to be zooted up a little bit. But I thought, what better way to go get zooted up than to ride a friggin' superbike around? That sounds fun. So as you guys can see, this TFT dash, so let's talk about that first. It is completely customizable, completely, you can change every single parameter on this thing, and I've only delved into a little bit of it, but it is absolutely crazy how much you can change on this motorcycle on the TFT. So if you don't like the way the TFT looks, don't worry, there's probably a setting in which you will enjoy the way it looks. So we'll get into that a little bit later if we have time for it. Now, the first thing you got to know about the Fireblade is that these motorcycles have a very long history in Honda's lineup. Honda has been making these kind of insane flagship superbikes for the better part of 3 decades, maybe even 4 decades now, with stuff like the RC30, the RC45, the NR750, the RC213 VS. Honda has a penchant for making these incredibly bespoke, very, very expensive superbikes. And the thing is, this one was built specifically to compete in World Superbike, so it's not exactly like an NR750 or an old RC213 VS. It's a little bit different than those things because it's designed to go and compete in an actual series, so it needs to be sold to mere mortals at a somewhat reasonable price. Now, this bike, I fully understand, guys. This bike is like down payment on a house money. So this is a motorcycle that I have genuinely, except for like maybe 2 or 3 videos on YouTube, I have never seen one of these on the road. And that's a really cool experience. I think that's the first thing you think about when you're on this motorcycle. You're like, God, how cool is this? I'm on the very, very best thing that Honda sells. And it has a ton of pedigree, a ton of racing history around it. And you really feel that as you ride it. You're like, this is a company that is the most winning manufacturer in MotoGP. They are the company that is the biggest motorcycle maker, I think, in the world. and you feel that sense of excellence through it. I think that's the term I would give for it. Like, you know, kind of lazily taking this corner here, it feels like a magic carpet. It's so planted and so dialed. I can't wait to see what it feels like actually pushing it a little bit on the track, because this motorcycle has gears that are infinitely long. I think first gear ends at like 92 miles per hour or something like that, which for leader bikes is somewhat normal, but even for this one is kind of crazy. So let me hit you with some specs. This motorcycle produces 215 horsepower at 14,500 RPM. I've heard tell that the American version of this motorcycle does not make the full 215 horsepower, but I gotta tell you guys, I've ran this thing through the gears a few times now. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. It is lightning fast, and we're definitely gonna get some pulls on it so you guys can see. But this is a bike that, you know, it's not really about the top end power. It's more about the way it delivers its power and more about managing the power. That's the thing with bikes nowadays. Manufacturers can apparently now, according to Ducati, they can make, you know, 240 horsepower at the crank reliably and give you a factory warranty with it, which is absolutely crazy. But the thing about it is you have to manage that power. So really, motorcycles like this come down to their electronic suite. It comes down to the way they manage the power and put down the power, and the throttle response on the Fireblade is, so let me put it this way, it's amazing, but amazing in a way that I've never really experienced before. It's a throttle that is thinking all the time. It's always thinking and managing how much power and juice it's really gonna give you. It never lets you get really out of control with it. The on-off throttle feel is so buttery smooth. It's so deliciously smooth, but in an artificial way. It's not a mechanically pure, simple cable throttle that just feels so dialed in. Let's get around this guy here. Yeah, you can get around anybody you need to at any given time. It's pretty incredible. So a motorcycle like this is absolutely not for beginner riders. I think that goes without saying, but one of the things that makes it not really appropriate for beginners is, number one, how powerful the brakes are. This radial pull Brembo, this insane braking setup that this bike has, you know, this feels like a race bike brake setup to me. It feels very close to my 675R race bike. It is super dialed in. It's got a ton of power through the lever, and it'll send you careening like Enea Bastianini. Why is this guy in my lane? Now you guys can probably hear that when I get on the boil on this motorcycle, the exhaust valve opens up a little bit. I'll see if I can, right there. I can't really squeeze this bike out too much for you guys, but you can actually hear the exhaust opening up a little bit there, and it's such a cool feeling. This is a really, really cool stock exhaust setup. You can absolutely, you know, chill around town with this thing, have some fun with it, not really annoy anybody, but then when you get out to the twisties, you can really enjoy this motorcycle and have some fun with it. And what I was going to say as well is another reason why it's obviously inappropriate for beginner riders is the gearing is so long that you might think that you're in, you know, third or fourth gear in a certain position or something like that, but you're going so much faster because each gear is so much longer than you're used to, right? So we're doing here, you know, 40 miles per hour in first, and it does kind of feel like I'm not really revving the bike out very much. Click it up into second using that quick shifter, and, you know, just flick the wick just ever so slightly. Already doing 63, you know, so obviously this is a bike that picks up a tremendous amount of speed, extraordinarily fast. That should go without saying. But the thing that I'm noticing about it here in the twistier bits of road is how just, it's so planted, dude. It is so much like a magic carpet. It is absolutely crazy. And first gear is like weirdly usable. I'm taking these corners in first, and it just feels like a gigantic scooter because I'm only in first gear. I guess I could grab second right there, grab the brakes a little bit, have some fun here. it's so interesting when you're on the side of the tire and you ask for more throttle, you can tell it's not giving you what you're asking for. It's thinking, it's managing the power, it's very carefully manicuring the power and softening the power so you don't get out of control, which is really cool. I really appreciate that. And that lends itself to that magic carpet feeling, really. So as I mentioned, quick shifter up, but also auto blip down feature, which is really cool. Let's get a quick little pull in here on this very short straightaway. All the power is at the top end on this motorcycle. As you guys saw there, as I laid into it a little bit, you have to wait, and then it lights it up. It feels a lot like an R6 in that way, in that you gotta wait for that power quite a bit. And that makes sense. This is a bike designed to go as fast as possible around a racetrack. You're never gonna be at 4,000 or 6,000 RPM. You should be at the limit. You should be at the tippy top of the rev range, you know? And if you're not, grab a gear down and get to the tippy top of the rev range. So it's a very extreme power band on this thing, but in a weird way, it makes it kind of supple for road riding because the power down low is super manageable and comfortable and easy going, you know? So I'm really impressed with this thing, just like chilling in the twisties here. Obviously not going super fast because we're on the public road, guys. We don't like to go Mach 10 on the public streets here, but exploring this bike a little bit through some twists and turns tells you just how insanely capable it is. It is ludicrously capable. Try to show you guys this exhaust situation here. So right under 6,000, it almost sounds like VTEC, which is kind of funny because it is a Honda, but it really opens up at around 6,500, 7,000 RPM. But that's due to the actual exhaust valve on it. There it is. It opens up right, I think, at like 5,500. Oh man, this thing's got a lot of juice, huh? Holy moly. Just effortless, and it just works so well. On-off throttle is so good, man. It's so manageable. You don't even feel it come back on throttle. It's so smooth. I can't believe this on-off throttle on this bike. Talk about the juice, baby. Jesus. That's awesome. Again, a public road, impossible to even come close to what it can do. I mean, maybe for a psychopath, but yeah, for me, no way, man, no way. So as I mentioned, one of the coolest things about this motorcycle is how adjustable everything is, and this is really cool in this kind of class of motorcycle, this like kind of open class super bike, you know. We're gonna throw every single Farkle at this machine and try our best to make something that is just absolutely crazy. If you don't like something on the bike, the electronics are so good nowadays, you can probably dial it into your preference. So, for example, if you don't like engine braking the way it's set up on this bike, you can change it. If you don't like the way the wheelie control comes on, it's adjustable. If you don't like the way the suspension is sitting, just fiddle around with the suspension settings and you can adjust it on the fly. It's pretty awesome. Not on the fly necessarily, you probably have to pull over and look at everything because this bike does have a very, very prodigious menu system, and it's a little unintuitive if I'm going to be honest. It took me a while to figure out how to actually get to it on certain things. Let's see how the Honda manages some speed bumps here. I mean, it's really composed. Taking speed bumps at 30 miles per hour. It's really not too shabby. But it's interesting too because, you know, you look at stuff like the BMW S1000RR and the V4 from Ducati, and those bikes have gone, I mean, they know their target audience, right? And they've given them things like heated grips and cruise control and all kinds of, you know, creature comforts because they know that much like the people who have red stickered bikes in California for dirt bikes, they don't really race them. They don't really go to the track with them. All they really do is just bop around town and flex on their friends with their crazy expensive Honda that they bought. You know, that's kind of funny when you think about it, that, you know, Honda has not gone that route. So this thing, as far as I can tell, doesn't have heated grips. It doesn't have cruise control. Maybe it does, but I have to probably dive through 10 different menus to find it. And, you know, for as cool as it is being able to adjust every single little thing on the motorcycle, eventually you end up with that spaceship feeling. And some people like that feeling. I don't really prefer it on my motorcycles. I think you guys know that I really like simpler, easier going bikes. I'm not a big fan of super complicated machines. That's why I'm probably never going to own some insanely complicated ADV or something like that. Yeah, these bikes, you know, I get why they're complicated, because again, when you create this much power, you have to manage the power. You can't simply just give someone 215 horsepower and say, here you go, no throttle control, no traction control, it's all throttle control for you. Because they're not everyone's a super bike racer, as much as they'd like to believe they are. But the question is, does this thing make you feel like a super bike racer? Because that's kind of one of its intended express purposes, and I would say that it does. This thing feels phenomenal. Like, it's, again, a magic carpet type of feeling. And when you sit here in the cockpit, you know, it feels extremely special. You got the blue paint here, the HRC logo, the cutouts in the tank, the amazing TFT display, which is one of the best I've seen, except for BMW S1000RR and the Ducati V4. Those have TFTs that are on par with this. It makes the R1 look absolutely pedestrian in comparison. I didn't think the R1 felt outdated until I had really ridden and thought about some of the newer leader bikes, like the S1000RR and the, you know, Ducati V4S and those kinds of bikes. These bikes nowadays, this is truly a step above. This is a step above something like an R1. It's a step above something like a Gixxer 1000. Even though, you know, you put an average everyday rider on something like this and a Gixxer 1000 on a track, they're all gonna basically put down similar lap times. You're splitting hairs really if you're thinking about, you know, 215 horsepower versus 200 horsepower. It's not going to make a huge difference. Jesus, I wish this light would turn green. This is absolutely ridiculous. Well, let's light the wick, shall we? Yeah, it's got juice. But it's all at the top, man. It's all at the top of the rev range. All of it. It's such a spicy little meatball, though. I feel like $1 million when I'm on this thing. It looks the absolute business. Like, I was looking at it whenever we were picking it up, and I've had it parked in the shop, and I've been riding around today. The thing just feels like it's incredible the way this thing looks. The paint job, the overall shape and proportion of the bike, which, speaking of which, this motorcycle weighs in at 445 pounds wet and ready to ride, which is right in line with your stuff like your RSV4s and your R1s. Most super bikes nowadays weigh about that 440 to 450 range, which honestly, it does make them feel a little more porky than the 600 class bikes I'm used to. Like, my race bike weighs about 364 pounds wet and ready to ride, so this motorcycle weighs almost 100 pounds more than my race prep bike, which is, you know, it's saying something, but it also has like 100 more horsepower, so it doesn't really matter. Again, one of the things that I'm just really impressed about this bike is how usable and livable it is. Like, you can cruise around here on traffic, you know, barely having to change gears if you really want to. You could ride this thing in third gear basically everywhere and just poodle. Super easy to do that. The clutch is a cable clutch. If you guys have noticed, it's not a hydraulic clutch like you'd see on more fancy motorcycles. So simple cable actuated clutch here. Feels great. No complaints about the clutch. Honestly, works and operates exactly how it should. Another thing to think about too is the quick shifter up and down. Again, works beautifully in basically all conditions. I haven't found a situation where there's that exhaust. You guys can really, I hope you can hear it on camera. There's this beautiful crackle and pop that it gets whenever it comes off the D-cell. Try to book down too here. It's so buttery smooth on the downshifts. They're so delicious. Every single bit of the power is up at the top. I'm chilling right here at about 6,000-ish RPM. For to jump on the throttle. That was wide open. I didn't move a whole lot, but it's probably managing the power for me as well, even going full throttle like that. So again, if you want a bike that is a spaceship and is going to think for you and is going to really manage itself for you, these bikes are amazing, man. They work super well. They will definitely manage and control themselves for you and not let you get out of control. The question then becomes, I think, who should purchase this motorcycle? Who is this bike for, right? As we're just kind of stuck in traffic here going about 40 miles per hour on a highway. I think this motorcycle, you know, it's tough because at the price point it commands, which is honestly, after tax, title, license, at a $28,500 MSRP, this is basically a $30,000 motorcycle. And if you're dropping $30,000 on a motorcycle, on one motorcycle, and you're looking for that, you know, open class superbike type of thing, it is difficult for me to make the case for a Honda versus something like a Ducati or BMW. I think in this marketplace, a lot of people buy the Ducati and they buy the BMW because they want people to know that they spent a bunch of money on it, right? For example, like, you know, you could go get yourself a top-of-the-line, top-spec'd out Ford Expedition or something, right? Or you could get yourself the base model Range Rover, which they're probably comparable. I don't know much about SUVs, but they're probably comparable. One is objectively a status symbol that you want to go and tell people like, oh yeah, I drive a Range Rover. I got the Range, I got the Rover. You know, people say shit like that. Versus something like the Expedition from Ford, you're just like, oh yeah, I've got like the full Zoo Titanium package or whatever, Expedition, Platinum King Ranch, whatever the hell they call it, right? You know, so looking at these motorcycles as objects of the flex, you know, the Honda is a tough sell because it's a Honda. And I think if you don't know what this bike is and you don't understand motorcycles and racing and the pedigree and the history that this bike has, you're not going to understand what this bike is for. You're not going to understand, you know, how cool this motorcycle is. This is really a motorcyclist's open class superbike, you know, because we as motorcyclists understand, you're like, oh my god, this is Honda doing what Honda does best. They've got this rich history of making these amazing motorcycles. I'm so glad that they've made something else like this, you know. But to someone else, they just see the Honda on the side of it and they're not going to think it's any different from a CBR1000 down the street, you know, which is really a shame. But I tell you what though, for the way this bike makes me feel, $28,500 is, I think, a fair price. This is such a cool experience, man. I thought that it was going to be like basically any other, you know, big bad super bike, big bad leader bike. I was like, oh, it's gonna be just like a ZX10 or a S1000. It's not. It's really not. It's so different. It's so, I mean, the precision here is crazy. You can feel how precise and good this bike is. It's out of control how buttoned up and laser precise this motorcycle is. Now, one thing I've seen a lot online are people bemoaning the fact that, you know, this is called a Fireblade, and yet it is very different in its execution than an old Fireblade. Because if you guys didn't know, the old Fireblades, like the 929s, the 954s, and those bikes, they were very road biased. They were very much bikes that you could live with on the daily. They weren't these super sharp, laser-focused race bikes. That was kind of their claim to fame. They were good motorcycles that you could enjoy and have fun with, and still had a buttload of power. This bike is completely different. It's completely different than those old Fireblades, and that has upset quite a few people. Quite a few people are like, oh, like why do they call it a Fireblade if it's like this super all-out race bike? But if you own the trademark to the Fireblade name, wouldn't you want to use it? It's such a cool name for a motorcycle. Possibly the coolest name for a motorcycle, if we're being completely honest. I can't think of a bike that has a cooler name than the fucking Fireblade. It's so anime, it's so Japanese, it's so kind of like you speak of it with reverence, you know. You have to wield the sword of Excalibur, wield the Fireblade. It's cool, man. It conjures up, like, you know, images of when you were a kid and you had posters of bikes on your wallpaper on your house, or maybe, you know, for my generation, you had like screensavers of cool bikes or something like that, you know. Yeah, it's awesome. It really is so gentle down low. If you put this thing in a low power mode and didn't really rev it out, you would never know how much performance it has. And I think a lot of people will ride their Fireblades like that. They will ride them in this very lackadaisical, low power mode, kind of chillin' type of thing. They're not really gonna put a lot of force into the motorcycle, you know? So that's a shame, but it's great that the bike can be tuned to be like that, you know? I think that's fantastic. One thing to note about this motorcycle is that it is quite a bit longer than something like an R1 or a S1000RR or something like that. I was looking at the wheelbase of this bike, and I think it's 57.5 inches versus the 55 inches that an R1 has. So I'm sure Honda either adjusted the rake of the trail or lengthened the bike slightly to work better for whatever they needed it to work for. But I was loading this bike up in my truck, and I was putting the bed extender on, and the bed extender didn't fit on it. So I had to just kind of leave it out there. Alrighty guys, we're now in a beautiful section of Twisty Road here in Austin, Texas. Big, windy, wide roads. And one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to put the blade, as I'm going to call it, in third gear here and just cruise around and see what it's like. Talk about the ergonomics a little bit. So this motorcycle, as I mentioned, it's an open class superbike, right? So its ergonomics are extremely committed, extremely punishing for someone who's not used to riding superbikes and race bikes like this for an extended period of time. You're gonna have to acclimate yourself to using the motorcycle more with your core and your legs. You gotta keep your hands nice and light on the bars and support yourself with your legs and your core. You move around on the bottom of the bike here like this, and you keep your hands somewhat light so that you don't put pressure on your wrist, because this will definitely put a lot of pressure on your wrist if you don't ride it correctly. It's not a bike that you can jump on and just ride around willy-nilly. You have to think a little bit about it when you're on it. So that's something to keep in mind, the ergonomics on this bike. The peg height is seriously high. That's one thing that I'm actually noticing here versus something like an R1 versus an S1000RR. I feel like my legs are extremely scrunched up. It's a very aggressive peg placement on this motorcycle, very high pegs. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're thinking about getting one of these bikes, it's not a motorcycle that is very conducive for a long ride. You can totally do it. You can get used to riding a bike like this for a long period of time, but you will have to acclimate to it if you're not used to riding super bikes around for a long time. This is a motorcycle that you're gonna have to really, you know, you're gonna want to really ride it for a long time if you want to ride it for a long time. If you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta really want it when it comes to bikes like this. I personally think they're best reserved for their intended purpose, which is blasting around a racetrack for an afternoon and then sitting back in the garage, because you know, as cool as it is rolling around the street on something like this, and it does probably get a lot of attention because it is quite flashy, I would still prefer to be on something with upright bars for a street riding kind of situation. You gotta love that exhaust valve. Oh, it's so cool. Every time, oh my god, once you start riding this bike like it's supposed to be ridden, you just start getting more and more excited about it. Like just back there, I started trying to get in the pocket a little bit more, start feeling the front end a little bit. This bike has such a phenomenal front end feel, even on the street here. I can't wait to see what it's like on track, because holy crap, it works so well. Which is a shame, because Honda is not winning in World Superbike right now, or in MotoGP, but this bike has nothing to do with the MotoGP bike except for that bore and stroke. But yeah, this is a bike that unfortunately is still getting its ass whooped by Kawasaki's and Yamahas and Ducatis in World Superbike. So I think Alvaro Bautista's best results are like a 6th or 7th. I mean, which is great, top 6, top 7 on a good day. You know, that's awesome. But when Garrett Gerloff is on a, oh, why would you go? Why would you go? Why would you do that? You know, Garrett Gerloff's grabbing podiums and, you know, top 6s all day long on the Yamaha. So clearly either they need to get a better rider or they need to figure something out with this platform, because it doesn't appear to be working that great. Doesn't look like they can capture wins and podiums all the time. So just something to think about. Something to think about, Honda, you know. I'm now your lead race engineer. Something to think about, Honda. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I just watch the racing and participate in club racing myself and act like a dingus on YouTube. All right, let's have some fun here in this tight little twisty section. God damn, dude, once that exhaust opens up, this thing has so much juice, it's absolutely crazy. Oh man, it's so effortless. It's so beautiful the way cars up corners. I cannot believe this on-off throttle feel, man. It's just gorgeous. What are we doing? We're stopping in the middle of the lane. This is the polar opposite of the Kawasaki ZX-10, which has the snatchiest throttle that feels like it's going to literally kill you every time you open it. This thing is so buttery smooth on the on-off throttle. Oh my god, dude. It's delicious. Absolutely delicious. Yes. Yes, that's good. Yes, that's very good, Honda. Thank you very much. Oh, I can't wait to dial this thing in, take it to the track. Oh my god, I want to rail this thing around ECR and Circuit of the Americas. Well guys, on that note, I think we're going to wrap up today's video on the Honda CBR1000RR-R SP Fireblade. I told you guys I wouldn't call it that anymore, so we're going to stick to calling it the Honda Fireblade. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there was anything I did not address in the video today, just leave me a comment down below. I'll try to answer some of those questions and hang out with you guys down there. If you want to ask more questions about the Fireblade, feel free to hit me up on Discord. You can join on yamanoob.co, and I'm on there every day answering questions and hanging out with folks. We're going to be doing a Q&A question answer video on this bike as well. So yeah, in the meantime, make sure you sign up to win it, because it is a giveaway bike. I didn't just buy a Fireblade. That's not my style really, but yeah, make sure you sign up, because someone's going to win this bad boy, this $28,500 motorcycle MSRP, which is bonkers. Someone's going to win it for free. Make sure that it's you. I guess sign up to win it is what I'm trying to say. And we'll catch you on the next one. See you later.